hide myself. If you talk to me, I can still hear you. What?
Hello, everyone. We're going to start in a few minutes, just waiting for people to join us. Feel free to join. We had a funny moment because I was one of the speakers of the other sessions who came to your session. So he just mixed the session. So now it's back to his session.
Yeah.
Guys, we're going to start. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. There are still people coming. I'm just waiting for the go of my colleagues to launch officially. Still people to join. I'm gonna welcome. Okay, time to start. So empathy. So we're gonna speak about empathy with Sharon Steed. Is there space for empathy, and especially in our work, in our company? So today we have the pleasure to welcome you, Sharon. You're an expert on empathy at work, on collaboration, on inclusion, diversity by engaging empathy. I'm very happy to welcome you. This is your first time at Agile Tour Brussels. I hope you're gonna have a great session, and the floor is yours. Enjoy.
Thank you so much. So let me share these slides. One moment. So I am a keynote speaker and empathy consultant, and I'm also a person who stutters. And all of those things have incredibly impacted the way that I view not just communication, but also how we connect with each other. So I'm going to talk about stuttering in a little bit, but first I want to give you a little bit of background on, on what I do in my professional life. So again, I am Sharon Steed, and I am a keynote speaker and the founder of Communalog and empathy consultancy. So I spend a lot of time working with teams at companies on helping them to operationalize these key empathy behaviors that are going to just create just a better overall company culture through making it more inclusive. And also, helping to improve communication and collaboration through engaging empathy. I have a course on LinkedIn. It's called Communicating with Empathy. And that was really the first, big thing I did in this sort of field of empathy. And so, because I am a person who stutters, I'm always going to come at empathy from a place of, improving communication first. I have seen in my practice that if people can change the way that they approach communication and change the vocabulary and the verbiage that they are using every day, then they are going to have a much better chance of being able to better understand, those around them, right? The key to truly engaging empathy is to, constantly take perspective on, other people's experiences. And the easiest way to do that is to change the way you talk to them and communicate with them. So let's begin. I think the best way to sort of tackle this topic of empathy is to first describe it and to define it. So what is empathy? Empathy is defined as the ability to understand or share the feelings of another person. Now, I think this definition is all fine and good. I just realized that my slides were not in the slideshow mode. Just realized. Look at that. There we go. Now we're looking at a professional presentation. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. And I think that this definition is a perfectly fine, dictionary definition. But the problem is it doesn't give you guidance onto how to truly engage empathy in your everyday life. And that's because empathy as a noun is an idea. It is intangible. It doesn't, have any meaning until you as an individual and your team as a whole and your organization from top to bottom give it meaning that is going to be impactful and actionable. And so, empathy as a verb then is going to be a choice. And it's choice that, once you define it at every single level of the organization, like, organizationally, departmentally, on the team, and as an individual, it's a choice that you are going to have to make every single, day. And so what is empathy? Empathy is going to come down to how you define it, right? So, for one person, empathy can, mean one thing. But for another person, it can mean something completely different. It's a lot similar to being in relationships with people, right? We have a bunch of different kinds of relationships. There are friendships, there are partnerships, there are romantic relationships. We have, relationships with parents and siblings and children and employees, right? Our coworkers. And so every single, kind of relationship that you are involved in is going to need a different, kind of commitment from you. And so, you can't treat your partner the same way that you are going to treat your coworker. You are not going to treat your parents the same way that you treat your siblings. Empathy is the exact same way. So, in every single relationship in your life, it's going to be advantageous to really define what empathy is, how it looks, how it feels, and then you are going to have a much more direct line to a sincere connection with those people who are around you. So this talk is about culture, right? It's a creating, a culture of empathy. And so we, talked a little bit about, what empathy is. Now let's talk a little bit about culture and what culture is. And so this definition of culture, I believe it's from Forbes, and Forbes defines it as the shared values, attitudes, standards, and beliefs that characterize the members of an organization and define its nature. Now, when I see this definition, I see two different parts. And the first part is the shared values, attitudes, standards, and beliefs that characterize an organization. And so I see these four terms: the values, the attitudes, the standards, the beliefs. And these are all sort of circling around this concept of the experience that people are going to have when they're interacting with either you, your company, or your products. So culture, all of the things that you do internally, right? These values, these attitudes, these standards and beliefs, people are either going to, feel positive about, these things internally, and then that is going to, show itself in your product when you are dealing with your customers, or they are going to have a negative experience, and then all of that is going to permeate again to your customers. And so it's very important to get that internal company culture to a place of positivity, because everyone, including your customers and clients, are going to get the residual effects of what is going on internally. Now, the other part of this definition is this, last part here, and it's the define its nature. So, culture defines you, right? And so if you think about the, kinds of things that, are going to be a result of inclusive culture, the first thing that is going to come to mind is diversity, right? In order to support a diverse workforce, your culture has to be inclusive from the very beginning stages of the employee life cycle all the way until the end of it, right? So when you are creating awareness of your company and the positions available, to when you are recruiting people, to when you are onboarding people, to retaining people and developing that talent, every part of that cycle is going to have to support diversity through prioritizing inclusion. And the result of this, inclusive culture is that, people are going to stay at your company a whole lot longer, right? It's very difficult to really retain employees. I know that in the average, like tech company, yearly, the percentage of workforce turnover is about 13.2%. And, a good percentage of turnover, is about 10%. And so, it's really difficult to sort of keep the really good employees inside of the building with an inclusive culture that focuses on empathy, you are going to be able to get those numbers down significantly. And then, other results are going to be just, more engaged employees who are going to contribute, to their fullest potential. And then an increased well-being, a result of just overall inclusion is going to be that people will feel a lot more comfortable talking about the kinds of things that they are feeling and thinking, and they will be able to share their opinions and ideas a lot more confidently, because they'll feel comfortable doing so. And also, like, they'll feel that you as their coworkers or their coaches or their managers are going to really listen to them and pay attention to their comments and their concerns. So culture then is going to be the big things, right? Those sort of big ideas, those big things are going to define your culture, right? If you have a diverse workforce and you can like keep those diverse people in the building for like a longer time, like that's going to define your culture, right? um, if people feel that they can speak up and they can be more productive, those big things are going to really define your culture. So if the big things define your culture, then the little things are going to create your culture. So what do I mean by this? It's these, small everyday moments that matter, that are going to create an inclusive culture. And I know that, you all as agile coaches and agile leaders are on the pulse of these things. You have your hands on a lot of different processes that are going on, and you have a front row seat to the feelings and the thoughts of what a lot of the workforce is experiencing. And so a lot of these moments that truly matter to the individuals in your company are probably going to come from their experiences with you as an agile coach or an agile leader, right? So what do I mean by the moments that matter? I'm talking about these everyday interactions, right? Like the conversations that you are constantly having, like every time you talk to a person is an opportunity to really pay attention to the things that they are saying, right? Every time you are in a meeting or are on a call, this is an opportunity to create a positive moment that matters to the people around you. And so these moments that matter are going to be the cornerstone of empathy at work. And I like to talk about empathy at work because it is truly the foundation of all things good, right? If you want to be a better communicator, then you are going to focus on empathy. If you want to be a better collaborator, focus on empathy. If you want to create more of those small everyday moments that matter, then you should focus on empathy. So what do I mean by this? Well, I like to call these your, key empathy behaviors, right? And these are going to help you optimize these moments that matter. So your key empathy behaviors, or your KEBs, are going to be the core components required to really engage in empathy actions and communication, as well as beyond. It's going to, be a little bit different for every single person. The things that work for, your coworker, are not necessarily going to be the best things that work for you. So it's going to be your specific process to operationalize empathy. And it really is going to be the cornerstone of the employee life cycle. Now, I bring the employee life cycle up because I think that you, as Agile leaders, you have your fingers on the pulse of, like the different stages and how people truly engage, like with the company, how they really feel about, the things like that are going on internally, as well as, like how those internal, behaviors are impacting the customers externally. So what are the key empathy behaviors? So I've broken them down into three, like major buckets, and those are patience, perspective, and connection. Now, when I say that these are, the key empathy behaviors, I'm not saying that these behaviors are patience, perspective, and connection. What I am saying is that all of the behaviors that are, key empathy behaviors are going to fall under these three categories. So let's begin with patience. So I like to talk about patience in terms of both attracting employees and recruiting employees. A lot of companies have a hard time finding quote unquote diverse talent because they say that they don't know where to find them. And I always come back with, you do not have a pipeline problem. You just don't know where to look, right? We live in a time, especially now, especially this past year and a half, when, the world has really opened up in a lot of ways. Because now, we're kind of in this hybrid work sort of situation where, there are some things like that are going on in person, but the, overwhelming amount of things are still sort of, going on via video and virtual. And so as a result, companies and managers and conferences and leaders have a lot more access to a lot different kinds of people. So like this whole idea of, I can't find diverse talent because I don't, because I don't ever see these people and like I don't know where to find them, that's kind of gone, right? The pipeline as we know it is forever changed. And so, I think it's an important, time to really focus on, doing things outside of the box in order to try to find this talent that is going to, add a different perspective and to give you, a better understanding of a bigger sample set of your customers. And I love this stat. Only 12% of employees strongly agree that their organization like does a great job of onboarding, these new hires. Another good stat is that the typical time to productivity for like a new hire is 8 months. And so if we can, improve, our onboarding process, one, a lot more employees are going to feel that, they were one properly onboarded. They are going to feel a lot more confident in their position. They are going to, know the ropes a lot better. And then two, they're going to be able to be productive a lot quicker. And so just by really paying attention to the things that, these employees are saying, identifying, the pain points, because, these newer hires, are going to tell you, where things could be improved if you just ask them and you listen, right? You and your team can create a better onboarding experience for all of these new hires, and then they're going to be able to be productive a lot quicker. So patience in terms of action is going to be being present. We live in a time, where, excuse me again, where we're constantly inundated with, tons of just new information. We are, overwhelmed with messages from all kinds of platforms. There's, a 24-hour news cycle. We have, family and friends and parents and, all of these different people who, are constantly needing things from us. The problem is there is that we don't get a second to really just focus on, like what's going on in front of us. And so when I say patience, I mean stopping and paying attention to the person who is in front of you and presenting you with, like a new concept or a problem or, like just needs a person to really talk to. And if you find yourself in the position of getting a little bit, impatient, then I want you to remember the why. We get in these conversations and it's very easy to sort of, have our minds sort of wander off and think about, the other important things that, we have to do in the day. But if you always come back to the why of this interaction, you are going to be able to stay more focused, and you are going to be able to keep it on track, right? So that's patience. Perspective. Now, if you want to keep your, best talent in the building for a longer time, then you want to focus on, cultivating really solid relationships through listening. The only way that we're going to get to really know the people around us and to have, a better understanding of, their experiences and their views and their opinions, and then to translate all of those things into, more effective products and services for our customers and clients, is through continuing to chase perspective. And to do that, it goes back to patience. You have to listen. Another thing that's, always going to be helpful here is that because you are, constantly pursuing perspective, right? You are constantly pursuing context and understanding. It's going to be a lot easier and a lot more direct to both give and receive feedback that is going to, keep people in the building, but also to just overall improve their performance. Here, I like to point out that transparency, right? Honesty, like being very open with people about, your experiences is going to lead to just a more sincere understanding of, who you are as a person. And it's going to help them, also understand you. And that is going to lead to trust. And I know that all of you know that organizations that have, a higher amount of trust have employees like that are just more satisfied in the company overall, and the company as a result is a lot more successful. So how do you garner perspective? A good thing to constantly remind yourself here is that, you don't know everything. You don't know what's going on in a person's life, right? You don't have context. I think that it's very easy to sort of take personal offense to when a person is behaving in a way that we can consider offensive, right? But, it might not have anything to do with you. This could be a person whose kid, just puked all over them in the car on the way to work this morning. They could be dealing with, a sick parent at home. They could be going through a breakup. They themselves could be, in a financial situation that is so, dire that they're just, completely overwhelmed. And so, all of us are kind of taught to like come to work every day and put our, best, most professional face forward. And as a result of that, we don't really understand what's truly going on in another person's, life. Whether we like it or not, we bring our entire selves into the office. And so anytime we are dealing with a person who is, either being short with us, or we think that they are being, rude or disrespectful, it's a good time to really remind yourself that, again, you don't know everything that's going on in this person's life, right? You do not have context. So you are going to want to think before you speak. It's very easy to, be reactionary, right? Like if we feel that a person is disrespecting us, then we kind of want to pivot back to them. But if you pause and if you think before you speak, you are going to, keep the sort of, why of the whole conversation in the back of your heads. And so then you can continue on in this conversation in a more productive manner. Another thing that I like to do here is anytime a person is talking to me, I like to repeat what they have said back to them. This gives me, a lot more clarity. And then it also, helps you to filter through, the bias that, you just naturally, are going to have, right? Because we don't always hear what people are saying. We hear our opinion of what people are saying. And so if we can, just say exactly what they said back to them, it helps us to keep that bias at a minimum. So now I want to talk about, these key inclusion behaviors, because in order to, create an overall culture of, true empathy, you are going to want to also consider the behaviors that are going to create a more inclusive environment that empathy is going to thrive in, right? And so these key inclusion behaviors are going to be listening, objectivity, and then asking. So listening again is going to be the foundation of, just a truly inclusive environment. We don't always approach conversations in the most inclusive way. I think a lot of us, we, approach conversations as like, okay, like I'm going to talk and then I'm going to wait for my turn to talk again. And I'm not really going to hear what the other person is saying. And then after they're done talking, I'm going to keep talking, right? In order to have a truly inclusive conversation, you must really pay attention to what the other person is saying to you. And then as they are talking, these little biases that you have, that all of us have, it's completely natural, are going to pop up. And so it's important to really acknowledge these biases that you are experiencing. And you don't, like, it's not necessary to say to the other person, each bias that you are experiencing. This could be a thing that you are doing internally and sort of taking a mental note of as the conversation is going on. And the result of it is that, everyone is going to feel truly heard, and everyone is going to feel comfortable contributing. Now, objectivity is going to be the root of understanding. And so all of those biases that you are, now more acutely aware of, are going to result in some assumptions, right? And so now I want you to examine those assumptions, right? Where are those things coming from? How did I get here? Why do I think this? Just having this sort of, internal dialogue, it's going to help you make more fair decisions because you are going to be a little bit more objective because you are already, seeing that you are, like biased and you have assumptions. And a good thing to, continue this activity here is to ask yourself and some trusted partners, how do I address these gaps? How do I address these assumptions? And how do I address and correct these biases? And then finally, you have asking. And this is the how of inclusion. The only way that you are really going to have a more inclusive environment is through really effective and positive and purposeful communication, right? So you want to ask specific questions, like for feedback. A good place to start is to sort of pull aside, a trusted advisor after, either a call or a meeting and say, hey, how did I handle this? Did I include everyone in this conversation? Did people feel comfortable, speaking up? Did I, cut anyone off, right? And then to take that a step further, you then are going to want to ask open-ended questions in order for, like better understanding, right? And a lot of these questions are going to begin with how, right? How can I include more people on this project? How can I, have a better understanding of the customers who are going to be engaging with this project who, are not already taken into account? And, a big thing here is that, every point of contact you have with a person is going to be an evolution of your relationship. And so it's always going to be incredibly important to, leave every conversation in a better place than where you began it. So that is all that I have for today. If you have any questions, this is my email. I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn. And then if you would like to learn more about my consultancy or bring me in to your company to diagnose, where you are on the empathy spectrum, or if you want your team to, be better communicators, better collaborators, and to create, a more inclusive culture, please check out my website, communalog.co, and we can get a conversation started. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Thanks. Thanks for this invitation. Thanks a lot. Thanks for this invitation, for being more connected, for maybe changing the space. Thanks for that. I'm looking for the questions. So there are already questions in the Q&A from Cedric. Thinking before you speak can be difficult at times. Do you have some tips on that matter?
Yeah. So take a breath. If people are talking and you are just like, okay, I want to respond immediately, just take a breath. I think that when we respond so quickly to things, it can be coming from a place of an emotional sort of place, right? So our goal is to speak with intention first. And so if you can take a breath and sort of reset yourself before you give an answer, then I think that that's the best way to really take a moment to think. And it's also not like going to be really like awkward, right? Like if you are taking a breath, then people are assuming that you are thinking about the thing that they said, and that you are trying to figure out the best way to respond. And so it's actually going to be a good thing. All right, and I see the next question here is on feedback. Yeah, I got it. Thanks. Can you elaborate a little on how to improve the feedback loop through better context? I like to tell people here, especially people in charge, managers, leaders, that it's okay to really pose questions about how you are doing, right? Like we don't know everything that's going on in this person's life, and so if you just take a moment before you are in a one-on-one and say, hey, how is everything going? Are you okay? How are things at home? Good, right? If you sort of open up the conversation from a place of I am concerned about your well-being, you're going to have just a little bit of context on what's going on in this person's life outside of work, and then you are going to have a better sort of grasp of how to give them feedback. Does that make sense? Oh, and then another benefit is that they are also going to want to be more open and upfront with you about how things are really going. And so if you have just a more solid relationship, then feedback is going to just kind of go a lot smoother. And so the best way to do that is to really focus on, hey, like, I have a couple of minutes here. How are you doing? Especially in the time that we live in now, right? Like we're all, well, at least here in the States, a lot of us are still working from home. And so a lot of my clients now are, just taking, like a couple of seconds, like at the beginning of their meetings and saying, hey, how is everybody doing? Right. And so if we have that transparency, and if we have that trust, it's going to be easier to give, more, honest feedback, and people are going to receive it a lot better. Oh, perfect.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions or comment, feedback? We still have time for questions, so don't hesitate. Okay, great. So Sharon, thanks again. Thanks for being with us for your first session Virtual results. Hope
Thank you for
you
having
next
me.
year. The day is not over for us. We still have a couple of sessions, and the next one, which is going to start in a few minutes, is about generations. The title is "Boldly Go Where Other Generations Have Not Gone Before." A session from Minwei Chong and JF Hansen. So you are pleased to join the next session. Thanks for Sharon. Thanks for you guys for attending the session. Everything is recorded and will be accessible on YouTube. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.